The alleys smelled of rain-soaked cardboard and old coffee, the kind of place people passed without seeing. Lieutenant Jack Mercer had learned how to do that too. After 14 years as a Navy SEAL, his eyes were trained forward, scanning threats, calculating angles, keeping his world clean and contained. Compassion was something he carried carefully, rationed like ammunition. On that cold evening in downtown San Diego, he walked with purpose, boots striking wet pavement, hand resting lightly on the leash as his canine partner moved beside him with silent discipline. Ranger was a Belgian Malinois, lean and sharp-eyed, with the steady confidence of a soldier who understood his role. Jack trusted Ranger more than he trusted most people. They had deployed together, survived together, bled together. Ranger sensed Jack's moods before Jack did. Tonight, Ranger's ears flicked at distant sounds, nose tasting the air, muscles relaxed but ready. Jack's phone buzzed with a message from his sister about their father's upcoming surgery. Jack read it, jaw tightening, then slipped the phone back into his pocket and kept walking. That was when he saw her. She sat against the brick wall, wrapped in layers that had once been clothes, now more like memories of warmth. A shopping cart stood nearby, filled with bottles and a torn blanket. Her hair was matted, her face half hidden beneath a hood, and her hands were cupped around something Jack couldn't see. He registered her presence the way he registered broken glass or a flickering streetlight, an obstacle, a variable, nothing more. He had seen too much to let every story stop him. If he didn't, he'd never move again. Jack walked past. Ranger did not. The leash went taut as Ranger stopped dead, paws planted, body angled toward the woman. Jack felt the sudden resistance and turned, irritation flaring before he could stop it. "Come on," he murmured, the command low and automatic. Ranger didn't move. His ears were forward now, eyes fixed on the woman, not aggressive, not alert in the way that signaled danger, but something else, something softer. His tail wagged once, slow and uncertain. "Ranger," Jack said again, firmer. He tugged the leash gently. Ranger leaned into it, refusing, and then did something he had never done in all their years together. He sat. The woman lifted her head. Her eyes were a startling blue, bright against the grime and exhaustion etched into her face. She looked at Ranger first, then at Jack as if asking permission to exist. Jack felt an unexpected heat rise in his chest. He didn't like it. He didn't have time for it. "Sorry," Jack said, not sure why he felt the need to speak. "He's trained. He doesn't usually." Ranger whined softly and stood, stepping closer to the woman. He sniffed the air, then lowered his head and nudged her knee with his nose. The woman gasped, a sharp intake of breath that sounded like surprise, like fear, like relief, all at once. She laughed then, a small broken sound that caught Jack off guard. "Hello there," she whispered, her hand trembling as she reached out. Ranger leaned into her touch, eyes closing for a moment, as if he'd found something he'd been looking for. Jack froze. Years of training told him to assess. Was she a threat? Was this a distraction? Was there something Ranger was alerting to? But Ranger's posture was wrong for danger. He was gentle, almost reverent. Jack felt something shift, a hairline crack in the wall he kept around himself. "I'm sorry," Jack said again, louder this time, as if apologizing for the silence that had surrounded her before. "He's not supposed to do that." She smiled, a real smile that transformed her face. "Maybe he knows something we don't," she said. Jack swallowed. Are you okay? The question felt inadequate the moment it left his mouth. She shrugged, a motion that carried years of weariness. I'm alive. Most days, that's something. Jack nodded, unsure what to say next. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a few bills, holding them out awkwardly. It was the reflexive gesture of someone who wanted to help without getting involved. Her eyes flicked to the money, then back to Ranger, whose head now rested against her leg. Thank you, she said, but she didn't take it. Could you maybe just sit with me for a minute? Jack's instincts screamed no. Sit meant stop. Stop meant feel. Feel meant remember. But Ranger sat again, this time closer to her, leaning so fully against her that Jack had no choice but to follow the pull of the leash. He lowered himself onto the damp ground, back against the wall, the cold seeping through his jacket. For a moment, they said nothing. Cars hissed past at the end of the alley. A siren wailed somewhere distant, and rain began again, soft and steady. Ranger shifted, positioning himself between them, a warm, solid presence. My name's Evelyn, the woman said finally. I used to be a nurse. Jack blinked. Used to be? She nodded. Before everything went sideways. He didn't press. He knew better than to force a confession. Silence could be a kindness. I'm Jack, he said. This is Ranger. He's beautiful, Evelyn said, stroking Ranger's fur. I had a dog once, a golden retriever named Sunny. She slept on my feet every night. I felt safe then. Jack felt a knot form in his throat. Safety was a concept he understood in tactical terms, not in the way she described it. Ranger lifted his head suddenly and sniffed the air, then whined again, softer this time. He turned his head toward Evelyn's cupped hands. Jack leaned closer and saw what she was holding. A small bundle of cloth. Something inside it moved. It's a kitten, Evelyn said quietly. Found her this morning. She was crying behind a dumpster. I couldn't leave her. Jack's heart clenched. The kitten was tiny, eyes barely open, ribs visible beneath her thin fur. Ranger's nose hovered inches away, his tail wagging gently. She needs warmth, Jack said automatically. Food. A vet. I know, Evelyn said. I'm doing what I can. Jack thought of his sister's message, of hospital corridors and antiseptic smells, of how quickly life could change. He thought of Ranger refusing to move, of the way the dog had chosen this moment, this woman. Let me help, Jack said before he could stop himself. Evelyn looked at him, really looked, as if trying to see past the uniform, the posture, the guarded eyes. You already are, she said. But Jack shook his head. No. I mean, more. He stood, pulling off his jacket and draping it around her shoulders, despite her protest. He tucked it securely, making sure the kitten was covered too. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. The next hour unfolded in a way Jack couldn't have predicted. He found a nearby emergency vet willing to take the kitten. He bought food and water. He learned that Evelyn had lost her job after a workplace injury. That medical bills had swallowed her savings. That the shelter system had chewed her up and spat her out. He listened as she spoke, not with bitterness, but with a tired honesty that made his chest ache. At the vet's office, Ranger sat patiently while the kitten was examined. The vet smiled at Evelyn, treated her with respect, and promised to do everything possible. Evelyn cried then, quietly, shoulders shaking, and Jack stood there, unsure what to do, until Ranger pressed against her, and Jack followed, placing an awkward hand on her back. When they stepped back into the night, the rain had stopped. The city lights reflected off the pavement, turning the world briefly beautiful. Evelyn looked lighter somehow, as if the simple act of being seen had eased a burden. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. Jack shook his head. "You don't have to." They walked back toward the alley, but Jack didn't stop there. He took her to a diner instead, ordered food, watched her eat with careful gratitude. He learned she loved poetry, that she missed her sister, that she still believed people were mostly good, even after everything. Before they parted, Jack gave her a card with a number written on it. "Call this," he said. "It's a friend of mine. He runs a program. Housing. Job training. No promises, but it's a start." Evelyn took the card with shaking hands. "Why?" she asked. "Why me?" Jack looked down at Ranger, who wagged his tail and looked back up, eyes bright. "Because my dog wouldn't let me walk away," Jack said. "And because maybe it's time I stopped trying." Weeks passed. Jack thought of Evelyn often, wondering if she'd called, if the kitten had survived. He threw himself into training, into routine, into the familiar comfort of discipline. But something had changed. He noticed people more. He slowed down. Then, one afternoon, his phone rang. "Jack?" Evelyn's voice was stronger, steadier. "I wanted you to know, the kitten made it. I named her Hope." Jack smiled, a genuine smile that surprised him. "That's great," he said. "And I called your friend. I'm in a transitional housing program now. I start training next week. It's not perfect, but it's something." Jack closed his eyes, a weight lifting from his chest. "I'm glad," he said softly. After they hung up, Jack knelt and scratched Ranger behind the ears. "Good job," he whispered. Ranger wagged his tail, content. Jack never forgot that night in the alley. He never forgot how close he'd come to walking past a life that needed him. He learned that strength wasn't just about endurance or precision or survival. Sometimes it was about stopping when the world told you to keep moving. Sometimes it was about listening to the quiet insistence of a loyal dog and the even quieter call of your own humanity. And in that understanding, Jack found something he hadn't known he was missing. A hope that, when shared, could change everything.